So the first thing you want to do is pick a picture that you want to draw. I recently just saw this Bugs Bunny cartoon again, and I just thought this scene was hilarious, and I always think it's hilarious, so I thought it'd be fun to draw this. And so you just want to make sure that your pencil is sharp and you've got your eraser. And so what I do when I first start drawing is I'm going to make a very light sketch of the basic shapes that I see. So for instance, Bugs Bunny's head right here is almost like a triangle. So I'm just going to make a triangle right up here, and it's going to be very light. I'm not going to draw it dark because I want to be able to erase. When you draw, it's never going to be perfect the first time. You're going to always make mistakes, and so it's easier to just start with your pencil and fix any mistakes that you see, and then go back and fill in the rest when you're and kind of just darken the lines when you're finally done. So I'm just doing the shapes again still here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure I get a general idea of the proportions. And so these shapes are very basic right now. And so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of filling in the details, and I'm going to start with Bugs Bunny's head. And so I'm going to start filling in that triangular shape. And if you're not sure about proportions, a great way to figure out proportions is you can always use your ruler and start measuring if you want to, if you're trying to get a better idea of proportions. What I do is I use my pencil. So for instance, I put my pencil right up and I measure from the tip of my pencil, and I see that the width of his face measures all the way to where my finger starts right here. And so then I measure the top and bottom, and I see the width of his face is it's longer. The top to the bottom of his head is only this big. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I draw this from top to bottom, this ends here, and this is definitely shorter. So I'm getting a proportionate draw here. His face should be longer widthwise. So let's just start at the center. Sometimes it's easier to start right in the middle of what you're drawing. So I'm going to just put in his nose right here, and then I can kind of work off of that. And keep in mind, we're not trying to make this perfect. We're just trying to reproduce something that's similar. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's what your eraser is for. So as you can see, I'm still just very lightly sketching right now. I'm not drawing anything in very dark. And I love this look on his face here. It's just classic. got this real goofy look. And I can't see his ears, so I kind of have to guess at what it looks like at the top here because it is cut off in the cartoon. And if that ever happens, you can always try to look up another picture and see what his ears look like. And kind of just go from there. But I think we can take a guess right here. So we've got his head generally down, and so I'm just going to keep going and just keep working. And as you work, you'll notice, you know, you'll have to erase here and there. You're going to have to adjust. And actually, what I see, what I'm doing wrong here is take note of where the lines start. So the lines of his neck start all the way back here, right under his chin. And I was starting it by his tooth. It's way farther back here. So it starts right here. And so you see, I kind of generally, this part was moved to on the right. Everything should be moved a little bit to the left. And that's okay. That's why I did it very light. And when I do the details, I'm gonna move everything to the left. And if you look, I'm actually drawing this just a tiny bit bigger than this appears. And to help with dimensions, you can adjust your picture. To make it about the same size. That way you're not messing around with the proportion all the time and just trying to measure it. And eventually you're going to have to erase some of these lines that are confusing, because right now we're moving everything to the left. And so right now I'm kind of just making sure his tail, if you look at the picture, the top of his tail is close to the top of his head. It's just below. So as you can see, I've drawn it just below his head. So it's a good way to just keep measuring, and sometimes you just want to stop and look back and step back and look at what you've been doing to make sure it looks like it makes sense. See, this shirt should be moved back just a little bit. So I'm adjusting here because I noticed there's skin between his hands and I didn't have that at first. And so I'm just making this, kind of moving this hand a little bit to the right because I do want to get the skin in between. You always want to make sure that you're just sitting comfortably and adjusting the paper however you want to make it more comfortable for you. And I'm seeing that this leg looks a little weird. It's a little too curved here. So I am going to move this leg just a little bit to the right. And that looks a little better. And here his face is a little cut off. So I am going to try to have to figure out what the rest of his face would look like. So I can't get his cheek here, but it gets cut off. I just had it zoomed in too much so I couldn't see his face. So I just had to zoom out really. And let's not forget this little pillow and sheet that is laying here. So we're pretty much done here with the basic drawing, and now I know where to go over with the dark colors. So basically what you want to do is, if you just want a drawing, you're going to go over your lines, your final lines dark. You want to get that in dark. What I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using a Sharpie to go over this, and eventually I actually will paint this in watercolor, but you may not want to do that. Maybe you want to just use markers, or you just want to leave it black and white, so that's totally up to you. I can't seem to find my black marker, so I'm going to be using my dark blue marker here. So I'm just going to go over this whole thing with my blue marker, getting those final lines in. And that is the whole purpose of sketching first, so you can get it the way you want it, and you can be more confident in your final lines. So I'm done filling in the outlines, and I just want to show you a couple things. I didn't draw hard lines between the white and the gray of Bugs Bunny, because you can see that they don't draw that hard line. So when I do paint this in watercolor, I will paint those differences, but I'm not going to make the hard lines. I did want to mention one thing is I did not fill in his whiskers yet, and so I will go back and add that in first with my pencil, because I might as well just get this last part exactly as I want it, and try to almost want to make this one a little bit longer. And so now I'll come back and get that with my pen. And the reason why I'm doing that and not just filling it with my pen is because it's a very straight line, so it's easier to follow a line that you've already drawn versus trying to, and it's very comfortable for me to draw my straight lines this way, so that's why I'm flipping this all the way over like this. And as you see, I'm doing that because I want this end to be sharp. And there we go. So I'm just going to take my eraser and erase all those extra lines from my draft, because we don't need those. And you're pretty much done here. You can decide if you want to color this in with marker, or you can paint it with watercolor like I'm going to do. I will post a link to the video when once I do finish painting this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.